so many people talk about it as if it's filthy. You know, we have that term, don't we, the filthy money, or look at people who have got lots of money sometimes and feel maybe envious. I've felt that in the past. I used to think, how come other people have got money and I don't have any money? And yet it's that very way of thinking about it which will push it away. So we have to appreciate it. Lynn Twist says this, appreciate and it will appreciate. Patricia?
Is it mixing up love of money with greed, fear of appearing greedy and not feeling worthy of having this blessing of money?
Yeah.
You know, sort of all that flavours mixed up.
They can all get mixed up in it, can't it? Yeah.
And pushing it away.
Yeah. And I think there's nobody in the world who would say they had too much money, although there are some people who feel burdened by having a lot of money. Paul's shaking his head. Not in that way. But you know, there's really nobody who says, oh, well, you know, don't bother giving me any more, because it's the way that we live, isn't it?
You get the fear of loss then.
Yeah. So there's underlying a lot of the things about money. There's an idea of scarcity, that there's not enough, there's a lack of it. And I certainly grew up with that there's underlying anxiety that there's not enough.
It doesn't grow on trees.
It doesn't grow on trees. My dad used to say that.
All the time.
Yeah.
Money, no, it doesn't. Well, it does actually. Funny enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always thought it was funny too, because I grew up on a nursery, so it was like, whoop, she looks like it does, really. Pick the fruit from the trees. Yeah.
Nursery margins are great.
That's right. Yeah.
I think sometimes people use money to buy love from their children, in particular, or to make up for something.
Yeah.
So, from what Patricia said, if you treat money like love, if you give it out and give it freely, and there's no limit to amount of love we can give, and there's no limit to amount of money you can give.
Yeah.
There's obviously a sensible side to it. You can't just give all of your money away. Well, actually, maybe you can if you do it in the right. Maybe you can if you do it in the right sort of vibration.
Yeah.
But the more you sort of let it flow, sort of see it part of a circle rather than a start and a stop point.
And it is about getting that circulation.
Because that stops the greed. Because if you're always giving out and you're always accepting.
And it's really interesting when you said that she got that 50,000 and she felt, isn't that the ego kicking in, saying, oh, I got it from, instead of just being grateful and saying, well, I'm going to give it now and use it for the best as possible, rather than worrying where it came from?
Yeah, interesting. What happened with that is that she actually did send that cheque back with a letter saying that, you know, we're looking for partners in the work that we're doing, and I didn't feel that was happening, and she didn't. She kind of forgot about it from there. But years later, she heard from that chief executive again, who said that was the most meaningful, after he'd retired, that was the most meaningful encounter for him, getting that letter.
Wow.
Meaningful moment in his career, and that he had, in his retirement, had received an abundant retirement package, and he wanted to make a real contribution, and he did want to partner with the project, and he sent a cheque many times greater than the one that the firm had originally sent.
Sorry, because the universe doesn't like desperation, does it?
No.
So she was able to say, no, I don't want this is not right for me.
Yeah.
And then, because she knew she would get it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've always thought, I thought an analogy for blockage, you know, blockage of money. The human body is healthy when the circulation is going, but if you get a thrombosis somewhere, the extremity will actually be starved of oxygen, and you know, you could get a gangrene, or at least you get problems of some sort. And I sort of feel that the circulation of money is the same.
Same thing.
And that, you know, that you get a free flow and it goes round and round and round, and that's great. Get a blockage, and that actually damages the health of the whole, not just the extremity. The whole becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I just I just wondered how you felt about that analogy.
I think that's a brilliant analogy, because we have to keep it circulating, and any time that you're feeling a lack or feeling as if maybe there's not enough, how do you get the circulation going? So you give out so that you get the inflow, so you keep it circulating, just like when we breathe. If you try and hold your breath, just try and hold your breath. Hold it. Hold it. What's going to happen? Yeah, you can't, can you? Eventually, you've got to keep the circulation going. So it's exactly the same.
So
Otherwise,
sorry.
Yeah.
Is it implementing wisdom then, and giving some of it, and making sure you've also, as Alex said, you've got enough for yourself, or you've got enough. So you've got like different pots maybe, where you give some, and you've still got something left. Is that because you're implementing wisdom with money in some way?
Well, yeah, the wisdom really comes from, first of all, of the giving. So you're recognizing that there is an inflow and an outflow, that there is a circulatory pattern here. So to keep it circulating, you have to keep it circulating. You have to take some action in that way. And if you think about that, we do live in an abundant universe. The trees out there, the blossoms, they're not stingy, are they? They don't hold back. They just go boom, bloom. There's plenty of leaves. You don't see, just a leaf here and a leaf there, or whatever. They just go pow in that dramatic way. Living in New England for 10 years, you have that long period of time when everything's bare, and then comes May, and suddenly, pow, in a week or two, it's this amazing profusion. So there's no holding back.
So are you saying the what I can spare thinking is sort of a lack, almost a lack mentality?
It is, isn't it?
Oh yes, that's just what I can spare, and I keep it. Actually, that is not allowing the flow to go out and having confidence that the flow will come in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That what I can spare is lack mentality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we work with the spiritual law that we were looking at this weekend, which is as you give, so you receive. As you give, so you receive. So that it is a spiritual law, a spiritual principle, and you operate that by taking some action yourself. So we can't say to a fire, you give me some heat and then I'll give you some wood. We have to do it the other way around. We have to feed the fire before it gives us the heat. And we've got the free will. We can decide where and how we do this. But we know that there is a law at work, and it's at work whether we acknowledge it or not. That's the other thing. It's at work whether we're conscious of it or not.
And it's not judgmental. It's like gravity, it just does what
Yeah.
it does because that's what it does.
That's what it does, yeah. It's an amazing thing, and we can go through life pretending it doesn't happen. It's not there, but it is. And for a long time I had no awareness of it, and I had to learn about how do you deal with this stuff, this money stuff, this material world which we live in. And certainly when I first came across these teachings, my focus was very much on stuff and how do I get stuff, more stuff. And then realizing actually we are all searching for something, for some way of making life more meaningful, making our lives purposeful, and feeling like there's some contribution that we can make. And it was really looking at what Charles Fillmore was saying, what is your inheritance in life? It's divine ideas. He says, you don't go to praying for cash, you pray to be receptive to a divine idea. So that's really the invitation, is what idea are you given, and then do you act on it? So think about Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder, how she heard an idea in a lecture that she went to. W.E.B. Weeks was giving a lecture. Nobody knows much more about him than his name. But he was giving this lecture that they went along to, Charles and Myrtle, and she heard this one idea. You are a child of God, therefore you do not inherit sickness. And she had been diagnosed at that point, you probably know this already, but with 6 months to live. She had TB. She was that sick. And she heard that idea. You are a child of God, therefore you do not inherit sickness. And Charles didn't get anything out of that lecture, but she got something that she could nurture, something that she could work with, play with. And over a period of 2 years, she healed herself. So what was she doing with that idea? She was letting it come into her consciousness. She was, out of that, she got some other ideas. So one of the ideas she had was that, so she's a living being, a worm is a living being. What's the difference between her and the worm? And she came up with the idea there must be an intelligence within her body that's not in the worm. So if she can then, if there's an intelligence, it must be receptive, it must be responsive to what she thinks and what she feels. And so she started talking to the cells of her body and blessing her body, blessing the organs of her body. And she blessed herself back into full health. Later in life, she went to one of those palm readers. She said she never went to those things normally, but it happened. She was somewhere, and someone I'm not sure that she went and paid for it, but someone took her hand. I don't know which hand has your lifelines on, because I'm not into this stuff. But whatever it was, looked at her hand and saw that there was a point where if she had died when they had said, she could see it. She could see it in her hand. And then there was another 40 years that she had after that time. And she was in vibrant health. So there's the stuff you can do with your mind, because this is, all we are is energy, aren't we? And so what we put into our bodies through our minds is going to come out into the world, and then the universe responds to that. And so that all levels, whatever, you might have something in your life at the moment you're thinking, I'm not quite sure, maybe it's your work, relationships, health, money, any one of those areas or all of those areas, they're all something that is responding to you. That's the way we know what we're thinking and what we're feeling. You just look at what's happening in your life. So when I came across these teachings, I was looking for some answers. I had a willful child, and I'm sure my willful child was thinking, perhaps my willful mum will get sorted at some stage. So I was looking for some answers, and I found these teachings. I was heavily in debt. My relationships were awful. My work was stressful. I was fat. I was unhappy. And it was like, maybe these teachings will help. And they did. They totally transformed my life. And I remember, because I was so excited about all this, I wanted to start running workshops and doing things with it, and setting up a workshop at one stage, and we were being interviewed by the newspaper to put a little article in the newspaper, and Katie was being interviewed, so she's now this tall, strapping thing, but she's this little kid at that stage, and the reporter said to her, so, have you noticed anything about these workshops your mummy's been doing? And she said, your mummy's so much nicer now. Yes. Something had worked. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about Mr. Fillmore? and you say it took her 2 years to heal her body. How did she keep herself in that consciousness? Because we go back and forwards. I do a lot of healing for myself. I keep going backwards and forwards and I'm not getting it. How did she do it?
Well, she spent time every day, so there was a daily practice for her of blessing her body. And she forgave, she recognized that a lot of her thinking had been like, I'm sick, lungs not working well, I don't feel great. So she started to forgive herself for those messages that she'd been giving. So she would do that as a daily practice. She said she would sit in a room, she would have an empty chair. She decided that Jesus needed a chair to sit on and be there with her. And then she would spend time blessing her body. So it was a daily practice of continuing to do that. She said there are times, of course, when she felt like she'd slipped back, and I don't think any of our paths are totally smooth. We don't kind of start there and go whoosh. There are times when it's like, I think I've been working on this stuff for ages and what's been happening. So she said at those times when she felt like she hadn't really dealt with the sickness, she got up and she made herself physically work. She said she would dust, sweep, she would clean frantically until she was covered in sweat. And she said that actually helped her to come into a kind of new energy.
So it distracted her from the symptoms?
Yeah, in a sense,
Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting. Is there any, did she write a book about her healing process? 'Cause
She-
I love
We've got a leaflet, How I Found Health.
How I Found
Because
Health.
that's what I'm looking for. This is my thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I love my body.
yeah. So
I'm really interested in
it's powerful
how
stuff.
she did that
Yeah.
without getting back to, oh my God, I feel so horrible again. How do you do it?
And it's part, I think part of our journey is to become more awake, isn't it? More conscious of what we're thinking and what we're saying. We were doing our little course, and I can't remember who it was who said, so we were doing the prosperity stuff, and then at the end of it, someone says, oh, I can't afford to do something, and then go, oh, I shouldn't say that, should I? No. What Myrtle said was, if you want your good to grow, watch the little words you sow. Watch the little words you sow.
I was on went to the Mind Body Spirit Festival. There's a chap there named, I can't remember his name, but he did a very interesting course called Mind Calm. And a Scottish guy named come to it, and he was explaining the difference between sort of our, what I've learned to call sort of the mind and sort of our brain in the body. So the brain's a busy thing upstairs, and the mind is our sort of consciousness and awareness of what we are. And he was saying the brain is going to do, you see someone have an accident and think, oh, that could happen to me. It's going to be the thought that flickers through your brain. You have two choices, whether to focus on that thought or just bin it. And when you, sort of, I try to wake up in the morning now, I sort of thought, right, I might have sort of some silly ideas. But if I just visualise what I want the day to entail, visualise, focus on my vision for the end of this year, in like 5 years, and what I want to do, that helps me sort of, you're going to have these things which, silly little thoughts. If you don't vocalise them, you don't give them energy. You can just bat them across in your brain. And just to say, cool, no, let me that, and on to the next good. And sort of, this guy also said in meditation, don't try and be so strict with yourself, because the more you try and contain yourself, the more you react against that. The more you sort of, I used to think of meditation, I must sort of concentrate and have a clear mind, I must have a clear mind. And you constantly force it, it's like sort of, it's like the pressure difference when you have a bottle with the top, with the lid on top. You try and sort of squeeze it, and the bottle, you can't keep doing it, the bottle keeps coming back, because you're pushing against something. So just let it sit there. Focus on the good stuff. Oh, something strange comes in, push it aside again. Just focus on that, just that flow. You're not giving any energy to the silly things that are running around. You're not forcing them out either. You're not spending so much energy trying to force out the bad stuff. You're just not giving it any focus.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and eventually, the more you focus on doing that, the more you clear out that bad stuff, the more that just dissipates to the edges and eventually falls off your platform of thinking.
So you're re-educating your mind.
Exactly.
That's David. What did I know? I can't remember his name.
Yeah. I think look at my friend.
Very nice looking, I know that. Yeah, he is.
But for me, that the mind calm thing just really helped me sort of sort out some sort of thoughts.
Because what you focus on grows.
What you focus on expands.
Sometimes the thought, sort of, oh, I mustn't think, but that's another thought.
Exactly.
And I personally, I don't know if it would be helpful for anyone else, but personally, if I'm meditating, the thought, actually just turning away, just not thinking, just actually turning away, and it's gone. It's gone. You know, that's whether it would be useful for anyone else. Try it if it's useful. If not,
yeah. Is it healthy detachment? Well, so you're detaching love from whatever it is as well, aren't you?
And you're not putting any judgment on it, because if you're starting to go, oh, I shouldn't have had that thought.
That's another thought.
It's another thought, and also it's a criticism, isn't it? It's not being gentle on yourself. And part of this whole journey, it seems to me, is that we start being more gentle on ourselves and realise that it's all a big game anyway, isn't it?
Was it Martha Judici, one of the Unity teachers, tells a story about this young man who goes to see his father who's dying in hospital, and his father's on oxygen and lying in the bed, and the father beckons him across because he wants to talk to him about something, and as the son's walking across, the father starts to look a bit as if he's struggling, and eventually the son gets up and he says, "What is it, father?" And the father says, "Get off my oxygen tube." I think it's a good analogy for the fact we actually do restrict ourselves by standing, like the garden hose, isn't it? You stand on the garden hose, and by having doubts and fears and restrictions.
So an old professor posed this question to his class. A man dies with $10 million. The estate is to be divided in the following fashion. 1/5 goes to the son, 1/5 goes to the daughter, 1/6 goes to the wife, and the rest goes to his sister. What do they all get? So there's a long silence, and Sammy puts his hand up. A lawyer. Isn't it interesting how often inheritance issues and family money issues actually end up in the hands of lawyers? So what's going on there?
Greed.
And greed, underlying greed is what? Lack, isn't it? Scarcity, a fear of there not being enough. Yeah.
Do we have a right to expect our parents to take care of us anyway? I mean, they work so hard for that money, but it does become a bone of contention and create so much unhappiness.
And so if we can get our thinking right around it, and know that we live in an abundant universe, and that we have access to an abundance of divine ideas which can turn into cash. There's no shortage. It's what we do with those ideas. How many of you have had ideas and seen someone else put them into action and think, oh, I had that idea. Oh, why didn't I do something with it? So there's no shortage of ideas, but there's often a shortage of us willing to act on those ideas. We have to be the one to take the action. And know that if you've been given an idea, you will have what is required to make that idea come into fruition. It might not look like it. You might look at what your current resources are. But that's just current. That's not what will be as you move towards the idea that you've got in mind. Yeah. Some stuff to work on, isn't there? So I certainly grew up with this idea that there wasn't enough, and my family, there were five of us kids, and used to sit around the table, and there would normally be extras there as well. And there was FHB. Do you heard that one? Family Holdback. and go back. So you're sitting around there with your greedy little eyes going, oh, it might not be enough by the time everybody's had their lot. But of course we never did go hungry, actually. So, but this pervasive underlying thing about that there's not enough, that there's somehow we live in with this scarcity, it is so prevalent. Because we see it on the news, don't we? We see it in nations. We see nations going bankrupt. How do they go bankrupt? How come that this is the message that we're getting all the time? And it's to do with this belief that somehow the resources are limited. Do you know there's a forest in the USSR, the old USSR, which it isn't anymore, but it's large enough that it could build a house for every man, woman and child alive today, the size of the White House.
It's just divided, money is just not
Isn't it
divided.
incredible?
Right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the way the money is divided is just like in the conversations with God. God said that we could solve, Neil Donald Walsh, we could solve every single problem in the world if we divided the cake in a different way. There would not be no poverty, there'd be no hunger, there'd be nothing. But it's getting closer. There's a lot of petitions now out there. It's getting closer.
And, you know, I think that my belief is that as each of us takes responsibility for raising our own consciousness, our own awareness of who we really are, child of God, that we are these spiritual beings having a human experience, then this will have an effect on the world. If we know that we can walk through this life having all our needs and desires met, yeah, then there's an effect of that, and that we don't have to compete for our good, that in fact there's an abundance to share with, for everybody to have enough. There is enough. Always will be. So do you believe you're a child of God? Yeah. And you live in an abundant universe. Therefore you dare to prosper now.
Yes.
Yeah. And in all ways, because prosperity is about our general well-being, our relationships, our health, and money.